I'm sorry, I need you to repeat that, a hologram of a hooded figure said, moving the hood to the side as they stared up at the four-armed, weasel-like Tharan pirate. I could have sworn you said you raided a human orphanage at the edge of their system and took the young ones as hostages, the figure continued with an odd calmness in their voice. Yep, got a bunch of good ones too, the pirate replied, grinning. A couple of actual human young along with a few Voran kids. They'll fetch a good price. Put them back. For the love of the fabric of reality, put them the F back before whoever runs that orphanage comes for all of us, the figure interrupted, their tone no longer calm but panicked. They jabbed a finger at the captain, causing the surrounding crew members to glance at each other in confusion. Only the first mate, who was in the brig at the back of the bridge for vehemently disagreeing with such actions, shook his head from underneath a pile of children sleeping on his body. Already too late, lads. I warned you, but you didn't want to listen, the hammer-headed alien sighed, settling back. He winced as a few bruises twinged from the little ones rubbing against him. And now you'll be reaping your deserts, he said as alarms screeched, waking the children. Many of the Voran heads popped up in alarm. Shh, little ones, just your caretakers coming to get you back, the shark-like pirate said, rubbing the Voran heads, making them chirp lowly and settle down again, chattering softly. Captain, ship to our AER, a sensor officer spoke, catching everyone's attention. The hammerhead squinted at the image of an aging former cargo vessel burning toward them with a vengeance. She was beaten and battered, clearly having been put lovingly back together over decades. Designed like an old seafaring container ship, her cargo containers had been replaced with turrets flanking a massive cannon aimed directly at them. Her hull sprouted more turrets fore and aft with broadside cannons between them, while the eerie glow of her engines pushed her forward in a steady pursuit. Sir, we are out of turret range, but can't do anything about her main cannon, one officer said, eyeing the cannon dubiously. Not like they'll fire on us anyway. We've got hostages, don't we? They smirked, but it faded as the first mate shook his head among the little ones. One of the children poked their head up and giggled. Brat Fleur, they giggled, making one of the other officers freeze and turn slowly. The officer, Akura, who had agreed to this act for revenge, now sported a pale complexion, their massive cycloptic eyes iris shrunk to a pinprick. The Fleur, they said slowly before spinning around, hands flying across the console. Sir, massive energy spike in the vessel's output. Engines increasing heat output. They're actually going to fire. The officer's report went silent as the screen showed the worn vessel rock as the main cannon fired. A pointed shell rocketed toward them at near light speed. Helm, adjust course. It's a low-speed Mach. Just let it pass. Dumb humans, the captain smirked as the ship shuddered, RCS engines strafing them up. Then they saw fire erupt from the shell, zipping toward them and realigning to still hit. It was closing rapidly. Sir, transmission from the ship, one of the Vox officers called out as a screen flickered, revealing a brute of a man squished into a chair with a crash harness over his armor, rolling a cigar between his lips with a frown of disdain. A bandana kept his hair neat, and a thick beard with faint white stripes adorned his face. His thick, bushy eyebrows bent down in a scowl. After taking a draw from the cigar, the human pulled it from his mouth and spoke. This is Captain Brutus of the Fleur de Cardiff. You've got 10 seconds to hand over my nieces and nephews before my brother and I come in there and give the lot of you a pummeling, came the deep, bear-like voice of the man. He flicked the ash forming on the end of his cigar into a tray on the arm. F***CK, the hologram near the pirate captain whispered, staring at the same screen the captain was. What's a human pirate got with a bunch of cast-offs and nobodies, the Tharan growled, narrowing his eyes at the brute of a human staring back. The room the man sat in seemed to shake, lights flickering nearby. The helmsman on the Tharan pirate ship cursed viciously and pulled hard on the controls, the ship's artificial gravity systems fighting to keep the rapid velocity change from affecting the organic occupants. That bunch of cast-offs and nobodies you called them, the brute said as a slow grin spread across his face, revealing a metal tooth. They happen to be my brother's adopted family, making them my family. I may not agree with my straight-laced brother on much, but one thing we both agree on is you don't touch our family, Stonebrain, so you'd best be ready to hand them back unharmed. The transmission cut out just as the sensor operator yelled, "Brace for impact." The entire ship shook, waking up the other kids while the ones who had been awake giggled playfully. Several pirates surrounded the spike-like projectile that had punched a hole in their ship, splitting the deck apart. The back half just before the engine had a flange and had sealed the air in. What worried them most, though, was the hatch on the side that opened up, showing signs of literally being forced through the deck that should have by rights kept it shut. "Criffing, what's in this thing?" one said as they inched closer to the ruined marks on the floor. "No clue," another said as they slowly walked closer to the thing and peeked inside. "Hey," they mumbled. "Only one crash harness is up. All the others are still down." "Wait, the pilot's one is up too." "You don't say," a deep voice said behind them, right before a massive metal-covered fist appeared where their head had been, embedding the pirate's body in the opposite wall. "Now the real fun begins," the towering human smirked, rolling his shoulders as he calmly lit a fresh cigar he pulled from a pouch on his armor. "Ain't that right?" he asked a smaller figure, who was lighting their own corncob pipe and gave a grin up at the other. "Yep, let's go and say hello," said a lighter, more bubbly voice, though it had a raspy edge to it, like someone used to belting out orders and having them followed to the dot. "Oh, one tough gash who hates all pukers, what ain't beyond the up in the square?" An eerie jovial shanty rang out through the corridor, much to the huddling pirate's horror, the words distorted either by a speech impediment or likely the corncob pipe in the singer's mouth. "Son of a criffing cow, we should have never gone to that station." "Just what in the 7 rings of torment did the captain piss off this time?" one pirate whispered, poking their head out of the corridor. A light down the hall suddenly had a silhouette of a human wearing an officer's cap and a pipe passed through it, forcing them to duck back down into the cupboard. "So biffs and oi buffs them and always outroughs them," the voice continued before trailing off quieter down the hall, making the pirates sigh with relief. Thank the void he didn't turn down the hall. "There's no way he wouldn't have found her," another pirate whispered softly, leaning against the wall. "But none of them gets nowhere." Twin fists punched through the bulkhead beside them, ripping a hole through the wall, right as a wiry form grabbed the pirate leaning against the wall and snapped them in half like a toothpick, throwing them to the side. The sound of a hissing piston was heard just before a punch was thrown, and the faint light in the cupboard showed a piston jutting out of the elbow area along the back of the bulky forearm, slamming forward with a blow driving the fist through his opponent's chest. The bridge was in a tizzy, officers sprinting left and right, barking orders and getting worrying reports from the lower decks. Outside the ship, the Fleur de Cardiff kept pace like a horrific spectre, her cannons tracking them closely, not letting them go even if the main cannon was no longer aimed at them. They were still locked in. "Sir, multiple injuries on the lower decks." "Blunt injuries, broken bones, snapped limbs by the sounds of it," one officer called out as another ran up, panting. The officer looked terrible, armor beaten and tattered, dented in various places by what looked like fists. Oddly, the armor seemed twisted around said fists. "Sir, we can't stop them. Getting close is virtual suicide," they said, trying to pull themselves together as the Theron captain snarled, pulling out a small black vial and loading it into his armor. "All this for a bunch of cast-offs," he snarled under his breath as multiple troopers surrounded the doorway that had just slammed shut, the sound of pneumatic locks hissing shut. Boom! A massive fist suddenly appeared in the door on one side. Boom! Another fist, similar in size but set lower and a different shape, appeared on the other side, forcing the door off its rails even as the metal tried to hold firm. Bang! The entire door collapsed as both figures walked in, one significantly taller and heavier than the other. The lights flickered off in the bridge as an eerie yellow glow filled the room, revealing a wicked smile from the bigger man. The Fleur de Cardiff loomed in the darkness behind them, its main cannon slowly tracking back toward the pirate vessel. "Oi, this the one who messed with them little uns?" the small figure asked, spitting out the pipe and crushing it beneath their heel. The larger one blew out a cloud of cigar smoke as the heavy smell filled the room. "It is, brother," he said, moving toward the captain with a predatory grin. "Give me one good reason I shouldn't hand your corpse to them to play with, stone brain." A ripple of dread spread through the bridge, and the Theron captain faltered, trying to find words that might save him. He failed.